welcome to IT as a strategic partner. And as influencers, each of you, I'm sure, are looking forward to hearing from your panel of IT influencers that are really leading their companies through change by working hand in hand with their business partners. So good morning. We'll try to make this interactive as we go through the session this morning. Each of our panelists will take a few minutes to talk about something that's on their mind, and then we'll have a little interaction with the panel. But between each of the speakers, I'd offer you the opportunity to ask a question. At that point, we'll take like one question and then move on to the next presentation, and then have time at the end as well for other questions. But and as I said, we're here to help talk about help you as influencers influence things at your company. I'm Ed Collupy. I am a consultant with Capra Consulting Group and a former retailer for 20 years at the Pantry convenience store chain. On your panel today are Tom Dransfield. Tom is the IT director at Kwik convenience stores down in Texas. So good morning. Thank you, Tom, for joining us. We also have Ed Dzadovsky, who's with us from Circle K. Ed heads up the North American IT team. And Ed, welcome.
Good morning.
Sorin Hilgen is the Chief Technology Officer at Cumberland Farms, my home stores up in New England. So thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
And Jim Wenner, last but not least, who is the Vice President of Information Technology at Sheetz. And Jim and I go a long way back with different panels and different activities throughout the industry. So
good morning.
We're hoping that this morning that you'll learn a few things. Our panel is going to take us through really some ideas on how to engage the business or how they engage the business, and not just support them, but really get them involved with what's going on their side of the house, but also how they work with the business and listen to the business and respond to them. We're hoping that what you hear today, you're going to be able to take back, take home with you the ideas that they bring forth, and then help you document your own plan as well. And then some of the folks will also be talking about how to leverage employees, not only people on their teams, but how they work to engage people across the business in helping them get their mission accomplished as well. So with that, let's start with Jim on engaging the business.
And Ed, if you can get the clock started, because I have to know when to stop.
Absolutely.
So I can go on forever. Good morning. In engaging the business, a couple of thoughts that I wanted to go over today. From an IT perspective, we've got a lot of great people on IT at Sheetz who support the business from the stores to the corporate office to our distribution center. They do a lot of great work, but at the same time, understanding how that work is applied, understanding how it affects the folks throughout our organization on a day-to-day basis is really, really important. The things that we design and put together, we're envisioning when it hits the field, when it hits our customers and employees, how that technology is going to support them. But the rubber really hits the road at the store or at corporate or at our DC. So really encourage our folks to get out of the office, to spend some time checking in, to see how things are going. One of the, I think, opportunities that we have sometimes at store level is if you've got some recurring issues that are occurring, at times store operations figures out the workaround. They figure out how to reboot something and get it up and running because they're in a hurry, that customer's standing there in line, and sometimes you don't get visibility to some of the things that are happening. So it's important to get out there to see how technology is being used, to see what things aren't apparent to you back at your call center or through your systems that you're using to be proactive on. So being deliberate about you and your management team being really connected with the business in their environment and not so much sitting back in your environment. I think benchmarking your business and IT culture, what's really helpful for me are conferences like this where we can meet other folks at other convenience stores, or we can get relationships and visit other folks. We've done that a number of times to just spend some time together and talk about the common opportunities that we have as IT professionals in the convenience store space. So spending time talking about how you're solving problems as an IT organization for your convenience store operation, and how someone like Sorin is at Cumberland Farms, and exchanging ideas and best practices. Not everyone's going to use the same tool for the jobs that you're trying to do, but understanding how you're doing that work. And then attempting to maybe benchmark on the type of vendors that you're using, the costs that you have, the costs that you're incurring, what kind of cost structures you use for the business, I think is important too. And we're in a pretty high demand area in technology. It's hard to get people, so also talking about how are you recruiting and retaining IT talent into your groups. I think the folks that are also in the C-store space are very helpful for understanding some of that. We practiced this earlier today. I give him the head nod, and then he hits the button. Okay. One of the things that I like to do is try to use business analogies when talking to the business about IT. They're experts in the things that they do. We don't expect the business to be experts in IT. And a recent one that I had a discussion with was one of our transportation groups, and I was just talking to them about the fact that within the systems that they're using, their employees should only go so far, should only do so many things in the technology. There are some basic configuration things that they can do, but they shouldn't be popping the hood and attempting to access a database on one of their systems. And that transportation person, the light went on for them to say, we have the same opportunity for our truck drivers who are driving these tractors, which are leased from Ryder, and a lot of them are mechanical in nature and do know how to fix things, and we have to continually educate them on the fact that even though the truck driver knows how to pop the hood and get under the hood, they really shouldn't be doing that because that's not their role. So that was a great analogy that he gave for us, talking about the limits of what we expect our users to do or can do from both a security standpoint and protecting our infrastructure. So finding those ways where analogies can help you communicate with the business for things that make sense to them. We're builders of new stores, so we build a number of stores every year. So our business understands that as part of our DNA. And when we find a place that we're going to put a bid on, we're going to lock that in, and then there's a permitting process. Well, that permitting process takes 2 months to 2 years, depending on the attributes of that plot of land. Well, that's something that the business understands well. So for us, talking in terms of stores and store building, that the design process for this new great thing that the business is asking for, we're not necessarily going to turn that around in a week or two. There's going to be some time related to that. So having those types of discussions. I think also in the framework of talking about the business and the fact that with our stores, they age over time and you need to refresh them from a physical standpoint, we also have to do that for our technology stack. So using those analogies as well when you have to go in and update a database or do things like that, I think is also helpful. I think it's important to have a written IT plan, something that the business can look at, that they can comment, that they can question on. It's a way to communicate new terminology. It's also a place for you to get feedback, using a lot of visuals, being consistent in what you're providing them. And again, if you're putting it in front of them, different groups are going to react differently to it, but it gives them something to talk to and give you feedback on. So I think a written plan is very important as well. So as a recap for engaging with the business, having a written plan, using business analogies, give the business different options. They understand dollars. They understand risk outside of IT, so they can understand risk inside of IT. Know the culture of your business, and be sure to get out of the
Good. Ready for questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Feel free to ask questions. Step up to the mic. If you've got a question, I'll kick it off for you, Jim. Recently, our CEO was asked what keeps him up at night, and his answer was culture. If you don't get culture right, the rest of the strategy is not going to work. So how do you see IT and technology influencing the culture at Sheetz?
I'm not sure that we influence it, but I think we have a really good banner in front of us, which is total customer focus, which is the Sheetz banner for focusing on our customers at store level. And I think in IT, we try to keep up, with the great model that operations has created for our customers at store level to say, we as IT, all of our various customers across the organization, how do we demonstrate total customer focus? How do we make sure that we're giving HR and accounting and operations the things that they need? So for us, it's trying to model what the company already does. I think in IT we do a good job with that, but we're always learning. We can always get better.
Go ahead with your question for Jim.
Do you have a defined learning path for store associates to your IT team? And if so, what does that look like?
We don't, and it's a really great statement as we look at the pipeline for bringing in talent. Believe it or not, people aren't knocking down the door to move to Claysburg, Pennsylvania. But we do find that we do have a lot of folks across the organization who potentially could make that step into IT. A lot of times for us today, it is a store manager raising their hand to say, hey, I've got this college student and they're studying in IT. Can they take a look at them? So we do, as we post positions, those do go to stores. But we are not as good as we need to be as far as recruiting talent from our stores.
Sorin, want to take us through your perspective on partnering?
So, being in lockstep with the business. So, aligning the IT strategy with the business strategy is paramount. And in my mind, it's about customers. We're retailers, right? So it's in our DNA and in our blood to serve our customers. So I see this as, from an IT perspective, our customers are the end customer, the stores, and the business units that support our stores. And the customer experience transcends kind of the physical and the digital space. I see this kind of as part of the customer journey, which can be broken down into 3 distinct phases. The first phase is the awareness. This is where we have the opportunity to engage with a prospective customer and really demonstrate or drive the value of our offer. We need to do this from a person perspective and not necessarily from a product or a service perspective. So we need to present the statement more in the fashion of how we're going to help the customer, how we're going to be useful. And then we can move into the purchase phase, which is when we need to be relentless and repeat the value that the purchase has offered. So the value that was derived by the customer from the purchase. And then lastly, we move into the service, where we have the opportunity to take a customer and convert them into a repeat customer by presenting the repeat value of our offer. So what does this do for us? Well, it increases brand building, and it promotes and improves brand ambassadors. It will help increase sales and reduce the complexity of customer acquisition, as well as creating repeat and loyal customers. So to accomplish this, I think one of the keys is to make sure that we understand that everybody is responsible in this customer experience. It's not really just our sales and marketing teams that are responsible for this, but the organization needs to create measurable actions that can be applied across the entire organization. An organization that is prepared to take this step will be able to outperform other competitors as well. So the next thing for us is to be able to strive to create that emotional connection with the customer. There are studies that show that customers will more likely remember how they felt when they use the product than any other attribute in the product. So to that end, we need to work and try to provide that customer engagement. So this is all great, but everything needs to be actionable. So how do we do that? Well, we need to capture and act on the feedback that we receive, as well as measure ourselves. So we can do that through questions or customer satisfaction surveys or email campaigns. We also need to listen to what is being said in other channels, like social media. And then our surveys, we need to anchor those in the NPS framework, which ultimately just asks, would you recommend this product, service, or company to your family or to a friend? So these insights that we need to draw are anchored in the data, right? So the data starts what provides these insights. And data has become the world's most valuable resource. In organizations, we're being hit with data from all different angles. We have data from line of business applications, from ERP systems, from websites, from social media, from mobile applications, from IoT, and even third-party data sets like weather. So this acquisition of the data is actually very cyclical, because the more data we have, the more imperative information we will have to be able to improve our products and our services, which then translates into more customers, and they in turn generate more data, and so on and so forth. At the final outcome here would be an insight, which an insight actually demonstrates meaningful information about the customer and generates an actionable plan. So how do we build on that? Well, we start with the data that consists of collecting the data, which has potentially has demographic information, activity information, and behavior information. We then take that data and apply analytics to it, which is a process of trying to make some sense out of that data by uncovering measurable trends. And then ultimately, we derive insight and true meaning from that data. So how do we tackle that? We actually took an approach of taking the data and loading it up in an ELT process, which is extract, load, and transform. So what we're doing is we're taking that data and loading it up into a data lake in an immutable fashion and try to get it as raw and unprocessed as possible. We then take that data and transform it into a data warehouse, which then gets further transformed, which is into data marts, which are purpose-built for the business units or other groups of people. Obviously, that's a lot of data that's coming across, so we're not able to wrangle all that data, so we need to leverage technologies like AI and machine learning, which will help us understand the data better and provide patterns. So one of the things that AI and ML could do, as an example, is it could understand what a customer profile might be like, the purchasing profile might be like, or it could identify when an AC compressor unit needs servicing ahead of time. The more data we have, obviously, the better these algorithms become, and the better the algorithms, the better they'll be able to predict data and support the customers. So all of this is wrapped up in a self-serve / agile model. So long gone are the days of when the business has the time to be patient and wait for IT to go and generate a report of static data. They need data right away. So our job is to make sure that the data is available in a format in which the business units can then go and do self-serve analytics as well as derive insights from them. So to support all of this, we need to continue the modernization of the IT practice. And that consists of the agile process methodology. It consists of in-store technology and supply chain technology, mobile technology, as well as the analytics and insights. So from an agile perspective, we just need to be flexible and be able to change quickly to the ever-changing needs of the customer and the business. The in-store and supply chain technology will allow us to provide an omni-channel experience for the customer, so that they can be able to do things like ordering ahead, curbside pickup, delivery, as appropriate and possible. From a mobile technology, that actually puts the power back in the customer's hand, and it's really an extension of the store. And finally, the analytics and insights is what will generate that process that will allow us to maintain and support a mindset of continual improvement.
Tom.
Sorin, I'd like to ask you a question. Sure. I love what you guys are doing with data and understand, see that that's the way of the future. Can you give a specific example of an insight that you gained from the data that you're collecting that was then actionable by the business for a net benefit?
Sure, I can give you an example, and I actually saw one of my colleagues from the facilities team here. One of the things that we started doing is we started collecting data from the pumps, and the value for that was to actually start looking at flow rates of the pumps. So as part of that, the goal for that is to actually see when the flow rates fluctuate, to be able to act on preventive maintenance, so that the filters can be changed ahead of time. But kind of what we found out of that as well is we were able to identify particular stores where a pump was potentially offline for a day or two and the ticket had not been created. The pump may or may not have been bagged. So this is obviously an operational challenge that we need to work through, but the data was able to identify that and expose that situation for us.
Anybody have a question for Sorin? Sorin, one of the things that I notice going into the stores and all, in driving by your stores, is kind of the upgrades that you've made in terms of technology changes for consumers. It doesn't stand still, right? It is. So, is that a result of technology moving along? Is it a result of customer feedback? How do you make a decision that it's time to evolve to something new on that?
Well, it's a combination, and it's a synergy of the customer requests, the technology moving along, the possibility, what is possible to do today versus what it was possible to do 5 years ago. So all of that kind of helps us move forward in providing that experience and that destination that we're trying to be for our customers.
Great, thanks. Tom?
So I'd like to talk a little bit about how we at Kent balance what we do with technology with what the operational needs are. And so this would be a platform, could be a process, could be basically anything. And just give the IT guy a clicker, right? Bueller? All right. A little longer. Whoop. I broke it.
Try it again.
Yeah. Well, there we go. All right. So I see the balancing in between reliability, scalability, security, and ease of use. So you start with reliability. That's the bedrock, the foundation of your platform or your process. You want it to work. Has to work for the end user or the customer in some instances. Security, everybody is concerned about security. Seems like every week there's news of a new data breach, somebody's lost passwords, somebody's lost PII, and that's a big concern for everybody now. Scalability, if you're a growing company, you can't keep increasing your support staff every time you build a new store. It's just not sustainable. And then ease of use, obviously we don't want something that's too hard to use, right? And what is easy? Easy to me is different than what's easy to our operations teams, different than what's easy to our accounting team. The way that I think about it is like artists. A sculptor can't use charcoal to make a hyper-realistic image, but that person who can work in charcoal can't necessarily sculpt either. So it's just everybody's got a different set of skills, and what could be easy to me is not necessarily going to be easy to anybody else. So if your technology or your process is hard to use, what happens? Users don't adopt it. So you've spent time, you've invested man hours and money into something that doesn't get used. Your support increases, so then you're not working on innovation, you're working on maintenance of and helping people learn what it is you've just put into place. Users can develop a homebrewed solution, just like Jim mentioned earlier. If they have the ability to pop under the hood, sometimes that can cause security issues as well, and nobody needs that either. Sales loss. If you've got a mobile app that's hard to use, that the user interface is clunky or just doesn't work, then they're going to remember that more than when it just does work. So reliability. Everything has to work. That's the shortest story. And as I just mentioned, when something doesn't work, that's what you remember. If you go to Sam's Club with their Scan-to-Go app and it doesn't work, do you remember every other time that it did and everything went seamlessly? No. Which one are you going to put on Facebook? I went to Sam's and it's worked great, or man, I went to Sam's Club, I had to wait in line because this app doesn't work. So what can we do to mitigate that damage and reduce the frequency of it is just ensuring that in an evaluation period of whether it's DevOps or a new platform, that you've gone through rigorous testing to make sure that your end user and your customer at every level is going to be satisfied with the product. Security, again, everybody's word today. We spent a lot of time with our vendors working on what they're doing for security, because it seems that a lot of the breaches that are happening these days are a third-party support team or somebody who has access to a system for one reason or another. And so the question I always ask of everybody is, who has access to my data, and what factors or what methods are in place to make sure that somebody doesn't gain access to my information or systems. We adopted the principle of least privilege, which is not everybody needs to be an administrator. You have access to what you need, and that's it. We do that at every level of our company now. And I assume that at one of our stores, there's some kid who spends his time at night coding sketchy applications, and he wants to bring it to the office or bring it to the store on a thumb drive. And so we do what we can to limit the ability to do anything like that, because there's always somebody smarter, right? And we are heavily encouraging security as a culture at Kent now, because phishing's on the rise, ransomware's on the rise. Everybody's seen it in the news or have had first-hand experience, and luckily we've got some good adoption and scalability. So if your business is focused on growth, again, you've got to be scalable. You've got to be able to adapt quickly and maintain your systems. Cloud services for small guys makes that a lot easier, because a company on our size doesn't have DevOps, and having that available to us at a reasonable cost is really helpful for us to put something out there that everybody can use, and we don't need to increase support staff as we continue to grow. And automate and enhance innovation. Anything that a person's doing by hand, whether it's a spreadsheet, something on pen and paper, is there a way to use that to make that digital? And then, just as Sorin was saying with data warehousing, then that data can be leveraged by the business to make better decisions. And that's what we got.
So yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about how you manage this ebb and flow? Not that they're mutually exclusive, but this ebb and flow of ease of use, reliability, security. How do you manage that kind of keeping it all wrangled in?
Sometimes very poorly. I mean, it's a challenge because again, some. It is absolutely. That's a really good question, Sorin. Thank you for thank you for throwing a hardball. Dang. How do we manage it? Really, at that point, that's when we make sure that we're engaging the business as we're making these decisions. Where throughout the evaluation process, we start off with the basics. Is it reliable? What does it take to increase usage? If we say we acquire 20 stores or something, what does that look like with this? And then security, we deal with that on the front end. But as far as ease of use, we have to take that into account for the business, because I don't want to be the subject matter expert in everything within our control. So it's how do we manage it? Just by making sure that we're communicating with everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Question for Tom? You guys are very quiet this morning. Here we go.
Sir.
Bright lights over there.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. The question is, sometimes I face a problem with the IT department and the company due to whether it's resistance or lack of knowledge, or it's just pure lack of knowledge or misunderstanding of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So do you recommend signing up with a consultant just to make sure that he backs them up?
It doesn't hurt. I mean, if you're running into hurdles like that, then that couldn't hurt to be more of a mediator, because we all speak different languages, right? I mean, when I talk to our operations team, sometimes I need them to explain, like, what do you mean by that? And so if you're running into resistance, it could be just a matter of translation at that point between business needs versus the IT needs or a knowledge gap.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sure.
I think on that question too, if you're bringing in a consultant to help with that translation between IT and the business, that consultant should also be trusted by the business. Because if it's an IT-only consultant, the business is going to look at that and say, well, you're just paying someone who's going to parrot where you are. And if there's some breakdown between you and the business, there's some ownership on both sides. There's probably a breakdown in IT as well that you need to expose and talk about and get through.
Ed, talk about transformation.
Sure. So transformation is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I love this phrase here. Transformation is creating new ways to live, work, and play. This is what our customers expect. This is what we expect as customers for the retailers that we're spending our money with. I had the opportunity to do digital transformation on a global scale with McDonald's. I think my new guy card has expired, but I'm relatively new to this industry. I delivered e-commerce, mobile, and POS solutions to the largest countries around the globe with McDonald's and completed our transformation journey. One of the things that excited me about joining Circle K in this industry is I feel like it's one of the last to be touched by digital transformation. So if you think about that experience of pumping gas or buying a Coke, it's mostly the same as it was 20 years ago. So we're all right on the edge of transforming our organizations and our industry. I think it's a pretty exciting time for all of us. So a couple of quick statistics. I won't read the slides, but you can see the headlines here. Think about customers shopping in new ways. Home delivery has made everything accessible at your front door. What does that mean for us running brick and mortar retail outlets? Pokemon Go has brought augmented reality to the surface. Think about a world where cars never leave the lab. How scary is that, right? Mm-hmm. When they can do the testing without ever putting a car on the road, fuel in a vehicle, or an electrical charge in a battery. I have a love-hate relationship with Alexa at home, and I think probably a lot of you in the room do with your Google Assistant or your navigation thing. But it's the world that we live in. They dominate our lives, whether it's Siri on your phone, a home assistant inside the house. I recently purchased a new car, and it started off with a robot conversation. It wasn't the greatest experience, but that's how it started, and they got the sale done. So digital isn't just a marketing channel or a fad, and a lot of companies, I think, have made the mistake in assuming that it was. So I was back home in my hometown of Pittsburgh this past weekend, and I drove past the Sears that was closed, and the Toys R Us that is abandoned. I went into the mall through the JCPenney that's downsizing, past the Forever 21 that's going bankrupt, and you look around and go, these are companies that didn't want to evolve. We don't want to be those companies. The business is changing, and the way we engage with our customers is changing, and we've got to change with it. So I mentioned McDonald's. I spent quite a few years with McDonald's, and the journey there was really about bringing an entirely new level of everyday convenience and fun together, finding that sweet spot for our customers. And if anybody's been to a McDonald's lately, I promise you the experience is different. You can get McDonald's however you want, wherever you want. Through the mobile app, through a kiosk, through a POS, through the drive-thru. It will come to you at home. It will come to you at the curb. It will come to you at your table inside this store. It's a very different experience than it was. And for us, the journey was 20,000 stores on mobile order and pay by the end of 2017, a challenge in which we hit. So the biggest thing around achieving that objective is focus. And it started with the CEO, and it went all the way down to the associates in the store. So focus on, this is the priority, these are our objectives. By the way, here's the money to do it, and here's the resources that come with it. And without that focus, we could have never succeeded. So I love this slide. I like to say today in our world, the POS is the most important part of our technology equation. It should be the least important part. It should be the data and the transaction engine that drive that are most important parts of that equation. You've got a great looking mobile app or a POS sitting on the counter that sits above the water, but there's all these things happening underneath that are so important to what we're doing, and all of these things have to evolve. For us in the world of Circle K, what's under that water is a lot of technical debt right now, and it's a journey of cleaning up that technical debt and being prepared to abstract the endpoints with that business service layer that allows us to really drive data and transactions for our customers. I'm not going to show you the Circle K commerce platform, but I can show you the McDonald's one. Hopefully you all have a slide like this in your organization. Hopefully you're all thinking about the complexity behind that POS is the most important part of the equation. You don't see POS on here, you see all the things that drive that. So hopefully everybody's working on their architecture and their platform to drive. There's a ton of complexity here, and without clear objectives and goals on this, it's going to make the journey a lot more difficult. So for us in the transformation journey, some of the lessons that we learned, some of the lessons we're applying in Circle K today is focus on standardization. Like I said, we're a company who's grown through mergers and acquisitions very rapidly, and we've got this internal saying of hashtag 44 is too many. We've got quite a different set of combinations of retail platforms out there that we're trying to standardize and make consistent. Flexibility is key. Standardization is key for flexibility. We like to say we want to have a common core with flexibility at the edges to allow for innovation. Everybody should be focusing on a similar strategy. Cross-functional governance is essential. This is not an IT initiative. Digital transformation is not about IT. It's about the business involving, and it takes everybody from marketing to operations to HR to IT. So cross-functional governance is key. And we like to say in Circle K, we're making no regret moves. We're not trying to boil the ocean and solve every problem. We just can't do it. But what are those quick wins that we can get to start to gain some experience and get in the game? So our journey at Circle K is all about making it easy. You're going to hear, hopefully tomorrow you'll come to the session on the tech roadmap. Gray Taylor is going to present kind of where we're going in this space around digital technology. I'll be a part of that with him. When we look ahead, we can see some of these things are coming at us, and it's great. And I've been talking over the past week or so. These dates are rapidly approaching, and actually some of the technologies in this slide have accelerated. So we'll give you a preview of how we see some of that impacting our industry tomorrow, but these are things that we can't ignore. Everybody's talking about frictionless. How do you take friction out of the experience, whether it's inside the store or at the forecourt? How do we make the experiences more personalized? We mentioned AR before. What's IoT mean for our stores? How are we leveraging the Internet of Things to drive not just the POS anymore, but the coffee machines, the roller grills, our coolers? And then 2021 is we're pulling some of these things in. The connected car is here. And I think we're all thinking about how artificial intelligence and robotics play a role in our organizations. What about blockchain? As we think about what we're facing in the industry with age restriction, blockchain could be a game changer for us in terms of track and trace and making sure that we're being as responsible as we can as retailers and making sure age restricted products stay out of the hands of underage people. So the challenge, it's a complex world. There's so many disparate systems. We're a fragmented industry, and I think for us, the value of coming together in forums like this, the value of Connexus is bringing standards in a voice of one to an industry, I think, where we have so much fragmentation. So the challenge is complexity. We're really working on how do we simplify that, and how do we leverage economies of scales across these organizations to minimize that.
Very good.
Ed, a question for you. When you talk about digital transformation and having governance and the business being a part of that, do you find that across marketing and operations and HR, they are organized and have people at the ready to join you, or depending on how they've grown as an organization, you're seeking out and finding those people to engage, or do they have to identify folks for you? So in other words, are they prepared, or is there some evolution for them as well to ride with you on this journey of digital transformation?
I think we talk about culture. The culture's got to change across the organization, and we haven't changed and we haven't evolved for quite a while, so change is difficult. And what I've seen in my previous world and what I'm seeing in the new world is I love this term, constructive friction. So it's if you're a marketing person, it's uncomfortable now to think about things being done in a digital world or having a digital part of the organization. McDonald's, we put a chief digital officer in, we built out a digital organization. I can tell you it created a lot of friction. The ops guy said, well, you're encroaching on our space. We own the customer. Marketing saying we own the marketing, and the digital people are saying, no, it's a blend now. So it took a couple of years to really figure out the roles and make sure we had a comfortable approach to what is digital, what is marketing, what is ops, and how does HR fit into that. But it's a growing pain that as you go through this transformation, every organization is going to go through. The key thing is committing to the relationship and getting everybody to the table for the conversations early and often, having the hard debate and candid dialogue.
Very good. Question for Ed? How about questions for anyone? This is your panel. This is your chance to learn from a great group of IT leaders. You left a lot of time. Yeah. Okay. Great.
I'm an assistant manager for a Kwik shop in Kansas, but I am an IT major at the University of Kansas. What I would like to see in my corporation is a maintenance of that emotional connection with the customer while integrating the point of sale systems and the loyalty, public speaking, and mobile apps and stuff. So how do we streamline all of those programs while still maintaining that emotional connection with the customer?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, it's kind of the question that I gave Tom. I think it's really getting everybody involved, right? So it's not just an IT event, it's not just a marketing event, it's not just an operations event. It's basically kind of echoing what Ed was saying as well. It's kind of creating this blend of the various groups and building out these solutions and these options that will be able to identify more closely with the customer and identifying with a more personal experience, because I think that's what generates that emotional connection, is that personal touch, if you will.
All right, thank you so much.
I think also all of our customers are very different, and so the experience that they want, they may not want a lot of interpersonal communication. They may want in and out quickly, and others maybe enjoy more of that face-to-face eye contact. How are you today? Are we offering a wide variety of ways to interact with us, and does technology support that? And good luck with your IT work, and hope to see you up here in 10 years.
Yes.
Good morning. Could you talk to the complexity and how you've been able to get your digital infrastructure, and by that I mean the security, the networking, the cloud access, the analytics, to work consistently across all of your different sites and all of your different locations running on different physical properties to deliver a consistent customer experience?
Who wants to take that one?
I'll give it a start. I talk about 44. We're down to 30 different combinations. My retail systems senior director and team are here today. They've been key in driving that down. We're down to 30 combinations of retail systems in the stores today. For us, it's looking at what's the new way. What is our next architecture? And I think there's a session coming up here next. I'll put a quick plug in for. They're going to talk about APIs. So how do we get out of this monolithic architecture and into an API architecture-driven world that allows us, I like to say, abstract the endpoints, but have connectors to legacy systems and future platforms. So if marketing comes with whatever loyalty piece they want, there's an API for that they can plug into our system. Whatever a food service module, whatever you need. So I think it's getting to that integration layer and that API-driven architecture that's going to change. It's going to be a game changer for all of us in terms of how speed to market and how we adapt new technologies.
Yeah, and I would add that obviously integration is probably the most complex, so APIs are great, and we should strive towards that. Also, standardizing definitely helps, right? So kind of keeping a simple process, and then having the ability to generate those repeatable processes that you can then expound across all your sites.
I think when Tom, a couple of his points were on reliability and scalability, whether you're talking about hardware or software or security, a lot of those are pretty big investments. So as you're looking to upgrade your stack, looking at how that improvement in your infrastructure or software or security is going to provide value back to the business. In some cases, if you're doing a major upgrade, you may slow down some of the business ask or deliverables, but if you can tie that to end business value, there's going to be some support for you, and it's not just an IT thing, it's part of the business understanding that you're improving things for all.
Thank you.
Okay. Question over here.
You guys, everybody's touched on store design and infrastructures as well. Is it safe to assume that you or a member of your team is in the early discussions for store design at the very beginning, or if you're not at the very beginning, when does operations bring you into the store design planning piece?
Well, for us, luckily we've changed a lot of that recently. It used to be that we'd find out what was happening late. So there's a slab down, and suddenly we needed conduit. Now we've had a lot of leadership change within our organization, which has been really positive in that sense. Just last week we received plans for after the walls are designed, and then where do we fit in the box, and does this need to change before somebody actually is moving dirt? Is where we're at right now. They bring that to us much earlier, which is because we're not at a point where we know exactly what an A classified store, like what a truck stop is versus what a flagship store is versus different size of boxes. We don't have those completely standardized yet, so we're still a little bit. What's the word on that? Sorry, I'm rambling. But we're working towards getting the one footprint with different sizes for different applications. Sure.
It's a great question. IT used to be just a function of the business. Today it is the business. So you hear companies like McDonald's say they're not a hamburger company. They're a technology company that sells hamburgers now. We're going to be technology companies that sell fuel or electric or convenience inside the store. So it's more important than ever that for the IT leaders in this room that you have a seat at the leadership table. That you're engaged with marketing, you're engaged with construction, you're engaged with real estate, you're engaged with operations, you're engaged with HR. because everything that you do touches every one of those functions. And we're one of the unique functions that cross all disciplines in the organization, doesn't matter which one it is. So important to have a seat at that table and to be forceful about being involved in those conversations early and having an opinion, so you don't pour the concrete slab over, where the conduit need to go.
What else? Anything? So just as a reminder to what folks covered this morning, Jim says get out of the office. How often do you get out, Jim, to the stores?
Probably once a month.
Enough?
For a day visit. Probably not enough, but that's all I can afford out of the
I
office.
hear you. Very good.
I would add that one of the programs that we have, which I think is I certainly love. Cumberland was the first company that I encountered this in. Is we have what is known as Shadow Manager, which basically requires every single team member at Cumberland Farms to work in the store 1 day a year, no matter what. Which that's definitely going out there and seeing and experiencing what the stores are experiencing on a regular basis, and I think that's been great for us.
Super. Sorin took us through some of how to match priorities up with the business and IT. Tom, you took us through that balancing act and how IT is trying to stay balanced and on task. And then Ed went through transformation. So we have a couple more minutes. Anyone gonna take us up on question? Oh, I see somebody coming. Oh, go ahead, two guys. Excellent.
For companies like Sheetz and Cumberland Farm, you're evolving, you're becoming more restaurants. So I hear you talking a lot about customer experience, but when you take a look at supply chain transparency, food safety, recall capabilities, where does that prioritization in your list of IT things to do?
For us, it has always been front of mind, and we've got a director of food safety who drives that both from our suppliers through distribution to in-store. We have a food service audit team that is going out and checking the stores. So it is, and sometimes my security guy doesn't like when I use this analogy because it's his belief that IT security is more important than anything else. But I say that education around food safety, and the education around IT security is about making that part of everyday business for people, for our associates, for people at corporate, for people through our logistics supply chain. So it's communication, it's education, it's systems that support the process, identification of where you might be falling down, tracking and monitoring. So it's best practices that you have to build in to your organization to support food safety. It's not insignificant for the amount of time and resources that it takes to do well.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's definitely the same for us as well. And I think the preparation to be able to react if an event does happen, to be able to quickly communicate and rectify the situation quickly is another area that we're focusing on.
Go ahead.
One of you guys were talking about all the different data endpoints you're measuring, whether it's roller grill, pump operations, coolers. What are actually some of the measurables that what's some of the data you're measuring to actually drive measurables for the operations teams in your store, from pumps and coolers and roller grills and all the different equipment?
So I can give a couple of examples. One of them is I talked about the pump metrics that we're pulling and we're leveraging. Another area that we're pulling data off of sales that we can then turn and present a production planning by segment of time throughout the day that will in essence provide the quick grab and go products and make sure that we're always in stock. So those are a couple of areas, but we're still pretty early in kind of wrangling that data. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of some of the things that we're looking to do.
I guess just a quick follow-up would be: is there any way? Have you guys seen a way to measure cooler door swings versus door 1, door 2, door 3, door 4? Is there anyone out there doing that to see how a marketing plan might affect?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Anybody else doing anything unique like that? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, very good. Well, please join me in thanking the team of influences that we have up here. Really appreciate you guys taking time and spending it with us this morning. So thank you.
Thank you.